Can you guess where I am? One of the most iconic lakefront parks in Cleveland, Edgewater Park, is packed during the summer. But as you can see, I'm here on an early spring day and I found a parking spot without any problem. In recent years, Edgewater Park has become very, very popular in part because of all the improvements to its features and amenities. In 2013, Cleveland Metroparks took over management of Edgewater Park from the state of Ohio and incorporated it into its Lakefront Reservation. And since then, there's been a wide range of improvements to the beaches and the beach house, fishing pier, and the scenic views of this 100-foot bluff like the one I'm standing on right now. This is a very urbanized park whose natural features are very obscured and difficult to see. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a naturalist's eye and explore the hidden features of Edgewater Park that, despite this very urban location, are still discernible today. Before we get started though, go ahead and hit like and subscribe and hit that share button as well so that you never miss your dose of nature in the city. Let's check it out. Edgewater Park is on a naturally occurring bluff that rises almost 100 feet above the shores of Lake Erie, offering breathtaking views of the city skyline and other areas. In fact, at one point in time, most of the Cleveland shoreline was actually a steep bluff that dropped suddenly into Lake Erie. Starting in the late 1800s through about the 1920s, the area that's now Lower Edgewater Park and most points east were artificially filled in so that it would be easier for boats and cargo ships to reach the city of Cleveland. However, at Edgewater Park, you can still admire that natural bluff. And if you've ever driven along Ohio 2, you might see a hill that rises on the south side, and that is part of the original bluff where waves would have crashed on the shore where the highway now sits. The natural bluff along Edgewater Park is not only great for its scenic views, but it's also nice that it's heavily forested, offering a woodsy and rustic feel to an otherwise very urbanized park. However, the forest that you see growing on the bluff here is not the original forest community. That would have been destroyed, honestly, a long time ago. The original forest, we don't have an exact record of what it would look like here along the lakeshore, but we can easily assume that there would have been many kinds of trees like American beech, hickories, tulip trees, and many others. But there is one of the original tree species that has returned to the bluffs at Edgewater Park. And it's a tree that naturally grows along bluffs and ravine edges. And that's the northern red oak, like this one right behind me. It hasn't leafed out yet, but when it does, it'll have those quintessential oak leaves. And this is a tree that thrives on these ravine areas. Nowadays, the forest along the bluff is highly outcompeted by another tree, the eastern cottonwood, which we'll take a closer look at next. Another tree species that we have growing in Edgewater Park are most noticeable along the swimming beach area. These are eastern cottonwood trees. Eastern cottonwood trees are a very beautiful tree that can tolerate growing directly in the sand and can even survive being partially buried in the sand. They're also really resilient against the harsh winds of Lake Erie. Historically, cottonwoods would have been restricted mainly to the Lake Erie shoreline. And nowadays, they're very widespread along railroad right-of-ways, toxic waste sites, roadsides, and other places where these trees can grow because they're so tolerant of disturbance. What that means is the eastern cottonwoods growing here at Edgewater Park are growing right where they should be, along the shoreline. and I cannot wait for them to leaf out with their heart-shaped leaves that shimmer in the wind. And we're only a few weeks away or so from that happening at the time that I'm recording this. So next time you're at Edgewater Park, take a moment to admire another living relic of our Lake Erie shoreline past, eastern cottonwoods, that thrive and stand tall today. If you've ever taken the natural surface trail down from the bluff to the beach, you probably recall walking over this outflow to the sewer. During heavy rain events, a combination of raw sewage and stormwater, which comes from rainwater, is discharged out of this culvert and into Lake Erie. It's a reminder that Cleveland is an old city with old infrastructure, and many of our sewers, when they overflow, can combine and add raw sewage directly to our waterways. In a future video, I hope to talk a little bit more about green infrastructure and some of the efforts to improve our local water quality. But for now, I want to bring your attention to something else that a lot of other people miss. Right next door to this combined sewer overflow is another smaller outflow with much cleaner and clearer looking water. And what this may be is the outflow of an old and mostly buried ravine. If you look at a historic map of Cleveland from about 1881, it shows a ravine that extended about half a mile inland right at this point. So what we might be looking at here is some stormwater that is a remnant of a natural ravine. Now, we're not talking about something like Euclid Creek or Rocky River or any large body of water. But what this shows us is that at one point in time, Cleveland's shoreline on the west side probably had a lot more varied topography. And perhaps there were small wooded ravines and gullies that made this place a little bit hillier and stands in stark contrast to the very leveled and landscaped environment that we see today. Well, there you have it. Some of the lesser known and less obvious natural features of Edgewater Park. Although this park is likely going to remain a recreational facility, in recent years, Cleveland Metroparks has also been working to bring back some of the natural components of the Cleveland lakeshore. For example, there's a pollinator meadow on part of one of the remnant natural bluffs, and there's native landscaping that has been installed around the beach house. The Park District has also been working to remove invasive species, and this place is an amazing place for migratory birds and to see migrating monarch butterflies in the fall. So while you're at your next beach day at Edgewater Park, take a moment to admire some of the natural features of this beautiful place. From the shores of Lake Erie in Cleveland, Ohio, my name is Alex, and I'm your CLE Urban Naturalist.